Hi, this is George Riddell, assignment 3 for anatomy, DCF year 1. Today we're going to be doing a purpose games on the function and explanation of the heart. So if we get right into it. The left ventricle is located down here. This is at on the picture on the right hand side of the heart on this picture, but it's in your heart, it's on the left. The left ventricle receives oxygenated blood as the left atrium contracts. The blood passes through the material valve into the left ventricle. The aortic valve leading into the aorta is closed, allowing the ventricle to fill with blood. Once the ventricles are full, they contract. As the left ventricle contracts, the material valve closes, the aortic valve opens. The closure of the material valve prevents blood from backflowing into the left atrium, and opening the aortic valve allows the blood flow into the aorta and flow throughout the body. Next we have the right ventricle. It receives deoxygenated blood from the right atrium and contracts. The pulmonary valve leading into the pulmonary artery is closed, allowing the ventricles to fill with blood. Once the ventricles are full, they contract. As the right ventricle contracts, the tricuspid valve closes and the pulmonary valve opens. The closure of the tricuspid valve prevents blood from backing into the right atrium, and opening the pulmonary valve allows the blood flow to into the pulmonary artery towards the lungs to get oxygenated. Next, we have the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is one of the two main veins bringing deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart. Veins from the legs and lower torso feed into the inferior vena cava, which empties into the right atrium of the heart. The inferior vena cava is located at the bottom left-hand side on this picture, but at the bottom right-hand side of your heart. It's blue in colour to represent no oxygen. Next, we have the pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein is the vessel transporting oxygen-rich blood from the lungs to the left atrium. A common misconception is that the veins carry deoxygenated blood. It is more appropriate to classify the veins as vessels carrying blood to the heart. Another way to remember this is that arteries carry blood away from the body, so A for away, and veins towards back to the heart. That's a good way to remember that. Next, the left atrium is up here. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs through the pulmonary vein. As the contraction is triggered by this sinoatrial node process through the atria, the blood passes through the material valve into the left ventricle. So blood comes through here, up, into there, and out again. Next we have the bicuspid valve, which is here. The bicuspid valve is one of the 4 valves of the heart. The valve is situated between the left atrium and the left ventricle. It permits blood flow one way only, from the left atrium into the right ventricle. This valve is more commonly called the material valve because it has 2 cups, and it looks like a bishop's headdress. So this valve stops blood from allows blood to come through here and into there and away, and it doesn't allow any backflow from in here back into here. Next we have the aortic valve, which is situated just here, this small little valve in between these two. The aortic valve separates the left ventricle from the aorta as the ventricles contract. It opens and allows oxygenated blood collected in the left ventricle to flow throughout the body. It closes as the ventricle relaxes, preventing blood flow from returning into the heart. So it comes out through here, back there, and stops any blood coming back through into there, causing disruption in your heart. Next we have the superior vena cava, which is located here. It's this big blue vein. The superior vena cava is one of the two main veins, bringing deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart. Veins from the head and upper body feed into the superior vena cava, which empties into the right atrium of the heart. Next we have the tricuspid valve, which is located just here. The tricuspid valve separates the right atrium from the right ventricle. It opens and allows the deoxygenated blood collected in the right atrium to flow into the right ventricle. It closes as the right ventricle contracts, preventing blood from returning into the right atrium, thereby forcing it to exit through the pulmonary vein into the pulmonary artery. Next we have the right atrium, which is located here, next to this chamber. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body through the superior vena cava, head and upper body. The inferior vena cava, brackets legs and lower torso, the synovial node sends impulses to cause the cardiac muscle tissue of the atrium to contract in a coordinated wave-like manner. The tricuspid valve, which separates the right atrium from the right ventricle, opens and allows deoxygenated blood collected in the right atrium to flow through to the right ventricle. Next we have the aorta. The aorta is up here, this big fat red one, with three arteries coming off. The aorta is the largest artery in the body. The aorta begins at the top of the left ventricle, the heart's muscular pumping chamber. The heart pumps blood from the left ventricle into the aorta through the aortic valve. Three leaflets on the aortic valve open and close with each heartbeat to allow one-way flow of blood. Next we have this septum, which is located down here and separates these two walls. The septum, when it is in between the lower and pumping chambers, brackets ventricles, it's called the ventricular septum. The septum keeps blood from the right and left side of the heart from mixing. This is important because the blood in the left ventricle is loaded with oxygen and for the rest of the body to use. So it separates these two chambers down here, and it separates them from mixing with the oxygenated blood and causing troubles to the rest of your body. Next we have the semilunar valve, which is located here, the main one you can see. The semilunar valves act to prevent backflow from the arteries to the ventricles during ventricular systole and to help maintain pressure on the major arteries. So what this does is it releases some pressure but also keeps enough pressure on your arteries to keep the blood flowing smoothly. Next we have the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is located up here near to the top of the heart. The pulmonary artery is a vessel transporting deoxygenated blood from the right ventricles to the lungs. A common misconception is that all arteries carry rich oxygen blood. It is more appropriate to classify arteries as ventricles carrying blood away from the heart. So like I said earlier, arteries carry blood away from the body, and veins carry blood to the body. Carry the blood to the heart, sorry. And that is located up here. That's it for the heart. Next we'll be going on to the respiratory system and the lungs. And then after that we'll go on to a PowerPoint with a quick description of everything.